And welcome to Tech Tip Tuesday. So this Tech Tip Tuesday is about quick color changes. The color changes you make as an airbrush artist between colors. When you're working, you want to switch from one color real quick to another. So I do this all the time, but when I do the live feeds for myself and for everyone, I do this off camera, so you don't often get to see this. I thought it was a good time to kind of show what I'm doing off to the side. So basically, this is a gravity feed airbrush, color cup on the top, and I'll show you both styles, but I primarily use this type, so we'll start with this. So this is a gravity feed airbrush, and this is the one we'll be working with in the beginning. Now what you'll need, or what I use, is you need a fairly stiff bristled paintbrush. It doesn't have to be an expensive brush. In fact, the lesser expensive probably the better. You don't want something super cheap that's gonna, lose all that, excuse me, lose all the hair as you're working with it. You want something tough, but you also want a lot of spring to it. You don't want a real soft brush because you're gonna be scrubbing out paint with this. So this is a good one. If you have airbrush cleaning kits, they'll often come with this really nice cleaning brush. This is perfect, but this also is a little bit more expensive than this guy. So don't feel you have to go this way, but this works exceptionally well. So that's a good one too. So brushes to do that. You need something to spray into. One of the best methods I've found is, again, it's off to the side so you can't see it, but I have a gallon size plastic mixing tub that you can get at like a home goods store, or not a home goods store, but a home, like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, or some hardware stores have them for paint. It's great. So you put a little bit of paper towel at the bottom when you start, and then you spray out all your junk into that. The beauty is when you're done with it, and I have a few of them, when you're done with it, when it's about, I'd say about, I don't know, half-inch of material at the bottom of the gallon container, you take that bucket and just put it aside and grab a new one because they're cheap. Do the same thing, put the paper towel in and start using that one. And I have 3 or 4 of them. By the time you get back to the first one, all the water from your spray outs has evaporated, and all you're left with is just a dirty paper towel. So you pull this out and throw this away, and now this is solid. You're not dumping wet, liquid garbage down the sink or the toilet. So it's a really cool way to do it. I have a small version here just because the bucket would be gigantic and you wouldn't be able to see what I'm doing. So, but you'll get the idea. Same idea. All right, let's get started. So this paintbrush, it's a gravity feed airbrush. It's got a few drops of paint in it. Generally, that's all I use since I'm working smaller and I'm adjusting colors and swapping around a lot. I generally only put a little bit of paint in the brush, and that's the first thing as far as a quick change out. Put the amount of paint in the brush that you need to use, and that'll save you a lot of aggravation and a lot of wasted paint too. If you're going to be using just a little bit of it, try to just put a little bit in. And that's kind of tough sometimes, but if you can get that down, then it'll save you a lot of aggravation. If you're doing something with a lot of color and you have a lot of paint in here, great thing to use are these inexpensive eyedroppers. You can get these anywhere, hobby stores or arts and crafts stores. They're inexpensive. They come in a bulk pack. So this is really nice because you can get in there and squeeze out, pull out as much paint as you want, and then you can even squirt that back into the bottle to save it, which is really nice. But the bottom line is you want to get as much of the paint out of the airbrush this way, not this way. You don't want to spray it through because you'll just be spraying for days. So once you get all the paint out that you can, you're left with a little bit of paint at the bottom. And what I use is a really heavy-duty spray bottle. You can use a regular spray bottle, but the heavy-duty ones work really well because they have a little bit more pressure, and they just spray out harder, which is great. And this is filled with just straight water. Now I say all this, which I should mention, that I use all water-based paints. So what I'm showing you today, is primarily applies to water-based paint, although you can make a few adjustments and use them with solvent-based paints as well. So the theory is the same. All right, so I have a really, this is a heavy-duty spray bottle. This you can get again at a hardware store. It has the big heavy-duty ones. And what you do first is over the spray out bucket, I put the nozzle of the sprayer in there, and I just spray everything out. And then, again, this is water. So I want to keep spraying till all I'm pouring out here is just straight water. So what's left in here is just residual dried paint, and I'll zoom in so you can see it. So as I paint, Let's get that to focus. There we go. You can see the dried paint in there in the bottom. So that's all that's left. So that's a good thing. Now you don't want to hit the airbrush right now, meaning you don't want to spray that residual water out yet. That's not a good thing. So what you want to do next is you want to grab your airbrush cleaner. Now for airbrush cleaner, you can use the recommended airbrush. Use the recommended airbrush cleaners. You can also use for water-based paint. It's one of the only times that I kind of break away from the manufacturer. So I use isopropyl rubbing alcohol to clean out airbrushes with this type of paint. It just works real well. It's inexpensive. It's generally safe. I mean, it is flammable. You don't want to breathe it, but for the most part, it's it's a household product, which makes it nice. So I transfer that jumbo bottle into a smaller, more controlled bottle. This one has a little ketchup type nozzle on it. Just makes it a little bit easier. So what I'll do next is then I'll just put some of the cleaner in the bottom of the brush. I'm gonna let that sit in there for a second, but you don't really have to, but I'm gonna let it sit just to kind of go over a couple of the other cleaners too. So with the Createx line, you could actually use their reducers as cleaners as well. They do offer a cleaner, but their reducers break the paint down as well. So you can do this step with the reducers too, and you could do it with any of them. They would just depend on how bad the paint is. The 4020, for instance, has acetone in it, so it's a little bit more aggressive than what I just showed you. So it just depends on what you're going to do. But for the most part, the alcohol works really, really well, the rubbing alcohol. Okay, so now that, again, you don't have to let it sit in there because it breaks it down almost right away, but I let it sit in there. So what you do is take your paintbrush and you just go in there and clean out all the little bits and pieces. Just clean out, anywhere where the paint is kind of collected. Just scrub it right out. Now here, this is the really, really important part. So this mess that I have in here now has all kinds of bits and pieces in it. So what you don't want to do here is you don't want to spray this through the brush because there's all kinds of dried bits of paint in here. It's like paint soup, So you don't want to spray this through because all this is going to get jammed in the nozzle. So you don't want that. Let's get that to focus a little bit. There we go. So you don't want that. You don't want to spray that through because that would definitely jam up your airbrush, and we don't want that. Okay. So what you do is you dump that out, get that all out, and then you basically literally rinse and repeat. So you take your spray bottle again, and again, what I'm doing is I'm flushing out all that dirty crap that's in there, all the little bits and pieces, and I check it real carefully to see what's in there. And there is a little bit more dried paint in the front. You can see that white band on the top. So I would normally go back in and rinse and repeat, but I'm not going to do that here just to save a little bit of time. So once you get all the dried bits and paint out of it, then you have a little bit of water left in the cup, and that's what you can spray through. And you notice it started spraying black. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking out whatever is left in there. Now from here, what I want to do real quick, and this you got to be careful with, I'll take a little bit of rubbing alcohol and just put a few drops in the bottom. Now this, I'm using this to basically flush out the end of the airbrush to strip out any dried or any residual paint that's left. But with spraying alcohol, you really don't want to do that out in the open because airborne rubbing alcohol is extremely flammable. So what I do, I'll back you guys out a bit, is I will take a paper towel like this and I will spray into that. So you kind of cup it all around and then spray into that. And that keeps all that alcohol and the overspray in the paper towel. And you're not breathing it, it's not floating around your studio. And if you spread this out again, it'll evaporate extremely fast, which is great. So that's it. So now from here, one last time, since I never want to end with rubbing alcohol since that breaks the paint down and I don't want any rubbing alcohol in there the next time I put paint in there. I just spray regular water through it and now it sprays perfectly clear. Now that's the whole process. So when it's not, I mean, I had dried paint, kind of gumpy dried paint in there. When it's pretty when I'm using the brush and there's not a lot of dry paint in there, that spray out process takes literally about 10 seconds. So it's really super fast. It does a great job. It cleans everything out, and it keeps everything kind of rolling the way you want it to. So that is the spray out. So I'm going to show you a couple other quick things since I got you here that'll kind of help out a little bit. If you're using a siphon feed brush like this Omni 3000, this has the bottle that plugs in the bottom. It's essentially the same trick, except you don't really have to. I mean, you can get in the siphon tube with a paintbrush to clean it out, but you don't necessarily have to. But the same thing works really well. If you have a spray bottle, you can line it right up with the bottom of that and squirt right in there, and you can see it squirting out the front of the brush because the needle isn't set, but still it gets all the way in there and flushes all the paint out. It's a really, it just works well. And other than that, it's the same deal. You can have one bottle set up with water, and even one small bottle set up with alcohol to switch out colors there too and clean everything out really well. This airbrush doesn't have a trigger because I stole it for the Patriot Arrow that I have. I stole the trigger off of that for that brush, so that's why this is triggerless. And one final thing, the Createx, and we'll probably do this as a separate feed, but since I have you here again, I'll show you what I got. So this is a Velocity from Badger that I have. You can't see it because this is black. It's a black airbrush, but this airbrush has dried paint that's been in it for a while. What happened is this brush hit the deck and bent the needle, and I had paint in it, so I just kind of put it aside instead of, because I can't flush it out. So a good way to take care of that, and this paint has been in there for a while. So Createx makes this product called Airbrush Restorer, and this is heavy duty stuff. This stuff works really well. So what I would do in this case, and I won't do it here, but I'll kind of show you how it works. So I'd have an airbrush holder ready, pour this in, and just let it sit in the color cup for about 3 to 5 minutes. And what that's going to do is that's going to actively break up all the garbage that's in there, and it's very aggressive. So it's neat stuff. You don't want to, again, same deal. Treat this as rubbing alcohol. You don't want to spray that through the brush because it'll make just a nightmare of your brush. You want to then take that out, and I actually reuse this stuff. So I'll pour whatever I have through a coffee filter and just put it back in the bottle. So it is reusable as well, which is kind of cool. But that will really eat up that paint. And then from there, you basically repeat the process that I showed you to get the rest of it out, and it works really well. So that is it. So a little bit longer Tech Tuesday today, but hope that gives you some insight on how I do that quick change out. If you want to see that quick change out or in action, follow me on Facebook and jump in on the live feeds that happen every Monday night. It's kind of fun, and if you guys are on, I can show it to you live, which is kind of fun too. So that's what I got. So there you go. So go clean up your airbrushes, get all straightened out. Thank you for joining me again with Tech Tuesday. I will see you guys on Thursday with a new piece and to kind of show the show and tell for that. And as always, thank you for dropping by. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do, and tell all your friends. And we'll try to solve some problems for you. So thanks a lot, guys, and I will see you next time.